Hello, welcome to Jason the Old Millennial. My name is Jason, speaking to you here in my basement in the great state of Kansas. And today I'm doing a movie review of a DVD that I own, one of my favorite movies. In fact, I just watched it yesterday on Amazon Prime. Uh, it's a movie I've been wanting to rewatch again. It's been a little while since I watched it, but it's a movie that I've always loved, and it is called The Best Years of Our Lives from 1946. We on the cover there. The movie is in black and white, so it's an interesting cover. We have two main characters there, Dana Andrews and Teresa Wright in the movie. Um, but the movie is much more than just those two. Those are two of like five, six main characters in the movie. Obviously, it's in black and white, so it's kind of interesting to see the color here and see her in a red dress. You never know what kind of color her dress is. Um, Anyways, and you see our main actors, Myrna Loy, Frederick March, Dana Andrews, and Teresa Wright are the ones they kind of. There's a couple other major characters in this movie as well. There's a backside, shows a couple scenes from the movie there, and there's again Dana Andrews. I'm sorry, I'm getting a lot of glare on this thing, but I got the DVD. I tried looking up the Blu-ray, but either I couldn't find the Blu-ray or the Blu-ray was too expensive, which happens a lot of times. Trying to find certain movies, for some reason, the prices are just outrageous, and so I have to just go with the DVD on that. I think I got this at Walmart quite a while back, like for $5 or something like that. And as far as black and white movies go, I don't necessarily need a Blu-ray for those. I feel like DVDs do just fine for a lot of those. Anyway, but yeah, Best Years of Our Lives. This movie came out, like I said, 1946, directed by the great William Wyler, one of my favorite directors of all time, who did one of my favorite movies, Ben-Hur, which I've talked about before, is my favorite movie of the 1950s. Also did Mrs. Miniver, which was a Best Picture winner. And this is Best Picture winner. So he's done three Best Picture winners. Again, director wins for all those. I believe he's got the record for most directing the most Oscar winners. He's had several actors and actresses that have won Oscars that have been in his movies anyway. So he's got some kind of record there. So if you don't know him, I mean, he's one of the great directors. Got to check out his movies. This is one of my favorite of his. Like I said, it stars Frederick March, Dana Andrews, Harold Russell, Myrna Loy, Teresa Wright, Virginia Mayo, also in this movie. Kind of some of the main actors and actresses here. It won Best Picture of this year. It won 7 Oscars in total. It says it won 8, and I think that's because Harold Russell won 2 Oscars. Harold Russell won Best Supporting Actor Oscar. He also won a special Oscar because getting into the movie, he plays. He's not really an actor, Harold Russell. He's playing a character who's coming home from World War II, and both of his hands um, are missing during the war, and so he has these hooks for hands. And Harold Russell in real life was in the military, and he's lost both his hands in the war, and basically, and so in real life he had hooks for hands. So they found not an actor for the role to play this guy that has missing limbs, but instead got a real military veteran who lost his hands in the war. Anyway, so it's very interesting to get a non-actor in this role, played by Harold Russell, and so he got nominated and won Best Supporting Actor, but they also gave him a Special Achievement Award for because they weren't sure if he's going to win the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor, and they wanted to give him some kind of award for playing such a character, inspirational character like this. Anyway, so maybe that's why they say it has 8 Oscars. But like I said, it won Best Picture, Best Actor for Frederick March in the movie. Frederick March, probably not as well known of an actor, but he was one of the biggest actors of the 30s, 40s era. This is actually his second Oscar. He's won 2 Oscars for Best Actor, but not in a lot of big films that you've probably heard of. But definitely one of the best actors of this period. Um, Won Best Director for William Wyler, Best Screenplay, Best Film Editing, and also Best Musical Score, which I noticed the musical score is really, really good in this movie, which I didn't remember until I was watching it the other day. I was like, yeah, it definitely does a good job hitting those emotional moments in the movie. It was also nominated for Best Sound, but didn't win. Um, Synopsis of the Best Years of Our Lives. It's interesting when you see that title, The Best Years of Our Lives. It doesn't really convey what the movie's about or what it, and even that the look at this, you don't really can't tell, except I can tell he's in military uniform. But it's a movie dealing with three soldiers coming back home from, and they all live in the same town, um, at Boone City, I think it's called Boone City. I forget, Ohio or something like that. And they all coming back, and these three soldiers, and they kind of meet as they returning, and kind of become friends as they're on the flight back home. They kind of get to know each other. Anyways, they're like, hey, let's get together, and all that. And so you see three soldiers coming home, three different situations, and kind of dealing with the aftermath of, it's kind of the first movie that deals with the aftermath of soldiers coming home that survived the war. And we're talking about World War II here, um, and dealing with the hardship of trying to come back to regular life, and you know, and anyways, I'll talk about each of the three main actors here. Like I said, Frederick March, he plays the oldest of the three as a sergeant in the army. He comes home to his wife, played by Myrna Loy, daughter, played by Teresa Wright, and he also has a son. Anyways, he comes home and he's having a bit of a hard time accumulating back to his family life, and his kids are older now. Yeah, I think he hasn't seen his family in 3 years, so there's a bit of a shock value of seeing his kids now. I think his daughter's out of high school and his son's still in high school, but uh, and trying to relate to him again. He's having a little bit hard time with the son, especially. I think, um, trying to regain that relationship. Something's kind of almost lost because he's been gone for so long, and missed some of the growing up there, and also with his wife. It's just strange coming back home after dealing with being in war, and then all of a sudden here now you got a wife and kids that you have to hang out with, I guess, and it's just different. And he has a little bit hard time dealing with that. Uh, he does a little bit of drinking during the movie. He seems to have a little bit of a problem with drinking, it seems, and as a way to get away from the hardship of getting after war and all that. Anyway, so that's kind of what he's dealing with. Also going back to his job as a banker and having to give loans to other soldiers that are coming back from war. Anyway, that's kind of his story. Then we got the second actor who's kind of in the middle. He's in his 30s, I believe, and he's name is Fred, played by Dana Andrews, and he's coming back from. He was a captain in like the Air Force, I think. He dropped bombs in an airplane, and he's coming back, and he's interesting. He comes back to his family, but he has a wife, but it's like he got married right before he went to war. It was one of those cases where it's like, I might not come back, so let's get married. And so it seems like he had a quick marriage with a girl he didn't really know that well, played by Virginia Mayo. And so he goes out to war, comes back to his wife, and finding that they're not as compatible as you would want as a husband and wife, and they're not getting as along really all that well, and there's really not much love in between them. Anyway, so he's dealing with that and trying to also come back to trying to get a job and all that, and trying to find his place in the world. He's also dealing with PTSD. He's having nightmares of the war, and all that. So he's dealing with all that part of coming back to war. He has a little bit of a connection with, like I said, he comes friends with the other two, Al and Homer, and you can kind of tell right away he spent some time with Al and his family, and you can tell that him and Al's daughter, played by Teresa Wright, are kind of having this connection. Even though he's married, he's kind of falling for her, and she, is falling in love with him. So this whole point of They also really like each other, but he's married, but he doesn't really like his wife that much. So there's this, strange love triangle thing going on. It's not really a love triangle, but I don't know how else to say it. Uh, you know, Obviously a lot of very difficult situation of dealing with. He's in love with this girl, uh, who they just, of course, they just met, but still, he kind of falls in love with her real quickly. But he has a wife and all that, and what's going to happen in that situation, and it's kind of a messy situation there. And so that's how they're kind of connected. And then we get to the last of the soldiers, Homer, who's the youngest, and he's come back from the Navy. And like I said, he's played by Harold Russell, who lost both of his hands, so he has these hook for hands. And he's coming back to his family, and he also has a fiance named Wilma. And of course, obviously, you're dealing with the situation of come back from war, and your family has to deal with the fact that you have these hook for hands, and he wants to be treated like anybody else, of course, but obviously people are going to look at your hands because you got hooks for where they should be. And so he's dealing with, he's having a hard time dealing with his family, always staring at his hands, or trying to help him out when he can help himself. As obviously that would probably be what happened in real life with Harold Russell, to some extent. Also dealing with his fiance, and that he feels bad that she's going to marry him when now he's got, everything's changed now since the war, and he doesn't want her to be tied down with him now that all this has happened. And so he kind of feels like, she shouldn't have to marry him, but she does love him and wants to marry him. So he's kind of avoiding her. Anyways, he has to come to terms with, kind of, he wants to be, he wants everybody to treat him normally, but the truth is people aren't going to treat him normally, and he has to kind of go with the fact that it's not their fault. It's just the situation with his hands. It's never going to be normal again after the war, and that he has to kind of come to terms with the fact that people are going to look at him and maybe treat him differently, and that's not their fault. That's just the way it is, and deal with that, and deal with the fact that his fiance can love him even though he's got this disability. Anyway, so that's kind of what he's dealing with. Obviously, very emotional plots or themes, very emotional themes to the movie. Of course, dealing with coming back from war and dealing with all the hardships of, coming back from war, as most soldiers do have. And they sprinkle a little comedy in there. There's a little bit of romance in there that really works well. Anyways, it has all that. Very powerful movie, I think. Even today, watching it, interesting because you're talking about World War II. You forget about all the hardship they come back from, because World War II was a very positive war that we were for, unlike Vietnam, which soldiers had to come back to even worse stuff because we were kind of anti-war at that point. Anyway, but yeah, so great movie to watch for that, to kind of see, kind of getting that, feelings of what's it like to come back from war, and what's it like, how does it affect the family and all that. Anyway, so I should say this movie, I remember it on AFI's top 100 favorite American movies. This was on that list. I know fairly high, I think, on that list. I don't know if it's a really well-known movie, but maybe you've heard of it. Maybe not. I remember not really a movie I heard a lot about growing up. Only seeing that it won Best Picture. That's all I really knew about it growing up. And seeing it on TCM is about the only place you really see it. It's kind of hard movie to, like I said, to get. I found it on DVD a while back, but it seems like it's not an easy movie to get. So definitely, it's a movie you have to kind of catch when you can. And if you ever see it on TCM or something like that, it's like a definite movie I think you need to watch. It's a little long. It's 2 hours and 15 minutes long, so it does. I won't say it drags because it's a really good movie, but it's definitely hard to watch in one sitting sometimes because of the length of the movie. And I mean, it could be shorter. I would admit that. Sometimes I kind of wish they would cut some scenes, maybe make it a little bit shorter, still have that emotional punch in the movie. But I remember when they did the AFI's Top 100 Movies, they interviewed Steven Spielberg, and Spielberg said this was like one of his favorite movies, and he watches it once a year. And, it says everybody should watch it, like once a year. And I was like, yeah, I agree with that with Steven Spielberg. It's like, yeah, it's definitely a movie you have to watch. I think once at least. Maybe not once a year, but I like every couple of years I like to watch this movie. I think it's a real kind of almost a hidden gem movie because it's not a movie that you see a lot. Um, my background with the movie is really, like I said, I don't think I saw it until maybe I was in college, in my early 20s, late teens, whatever. It was just a movie, like I said, that you don't really hear or see a lot on TV. But I was looking up movies that won Best Picture, and I wanted to see every movie that won Best Picture. That was like one of my goals when I was in college, because I've been obsessed with the Oscars ever since I was like in junior high. And so I've always enjoyed watching movies that get Oscars, anyways. Just to say, I guess I've seen them, and I can, do something like this and talk about them because I have enough knowledge about them. I can review movies or, analyze them and talk about them with other people. And I love just the whole history of of movies and what were the big movies at the time. And I remember seeing this on the list, Best Years of Our Lives. Had no idea what it was about because you don't think war when you think the best years of our lives. It's kind of like the worst years of your lives, going to war, coming back from war. So it's almost ironic title in a sense. One character does mention, I gave you the best years of my life, and I guess that's where they get and it's based off the book, I believe, but I don't think that's the name of the book. But anyways, but I remember coming across this, I think on TCM, taped it once on DVR at my parents' house, and it was a movie I was interested in seeing because it was Best Picture winner. And it was one of those movies that I really had no expectations for. I remember didn't really know a lot about, except that it's soldiers coming back from war. And I remember watching it and just being totally blown away by how good it was. And it was one of those movies where you're like, you have no idea, you're gonna hate it, you're gonna love it, and it's so great when you watch a movie you don't know what it's about, and it turns out to be amazing and great, and you're just like, wow, this is a really great movie. So happy I caught it and watched it. Anyways, just totally. Once I start watching it, I just totally get into the story of these three characters and their three separate kind of situations, and they're somewhat connected, especially at the end. And just I get emotional when I think about soldiers coming from home because I think it's just a terrible thing that war is terrible. It's an unfortunate thing that has to happen at times. We have to fight evil, and so and some soldiers, of course, it's sad. Some soldiers go when they die. I've never been in the military. I have some families that's been in the military, and I've been around military people. Um, and it's very sad going to war and dying. But a very noble, honorable thing going to fight for your country. So I feel a lot of pride in the soldiers that go fight for the country, and so much gratitude for their sacrifice. And seeing, but then I'm so sad when seeing them come home, and we've seen so many, instances of, PTSD, soldiers that become alcoholics, suicide, lots of suicide, I think, and soldiers coming home and being depressed and stuff like that. And just very, very sad having to see, someone go and just, mentally, psychologically, emotionally, just be wrecked by something that would wreck all of us, myself included. Of course, going over and having to see and experience what they have to experience. And so, a movie like this, I know, hits me very emotionally, even though I've never been to war. But I just think about, how bad I feel for those families that have to deal with something that's not their fault. They are doing something really noble, and yet they have to experience the bad after effects of that, like I said, psychologically, emotionally, and mentally, and all that, and having all the issues that they have to go through afterwards. And I think soldiers coming from home, soldiers in total should be given everything. Government should be taking care of them, I think, and we really should be helping them out as much as we can, with maybe need therapy, and all that, and dealing with the hardships of that. And so I feel my heart goes out for all the soldiers that come back from war. And so watching this movie, I get, hits me very emotional when I was watching it back. And I talk about how does it hold up today. It holds up today just like it did, I think, then, 1946, such a long time ago, but it's still that's still going to hit you emotionally. Soldiers coming from war, or just coming from overseas. You see YouTube videos of soldiers coming home, and it's so emotional. The family's so happy to see them, and all that. And we've seen other movies that deal with this. And this movie, I think, does a really good job. I think it's a really great story that's being told, and I love that we got three different characters with three different situations that we see that they all have their own hardships in their own way. Acting across the board is really great. I love Myrna Loy, one of my favorite actresses out there. Mostly known as a comedic actress, I would say. This has some comedy. She still kind of has a quick wit, like she does in most of her movies. A little more dramatic for her type of performance, but she's a great actress. Teresa Wright is one of those actresses that I've only seen like this in Mrs. Miniver, and she won the Oscar for Mrs. Miniver for Best Supporting Actress. And she's great in both movies, and she's like one of these young actresses at this time that I see, and I was like, yeah, I would totally fall in love with her. She has such a great smile, and such her characters always are these good, great personality characters, and I just like I'd love to see more of her, Teresa Wright. Um, and then yeah, the three main actors do an incredible job, and it's incredible. Harold Russell, not being an actor, does a really good job, I thought, in such a very emotional, maybe the most emotional storyline of the whole movie, of someone who lost his hands in the war and coming back to family, and really cool that he won an Oscar for that. In a really great role there. And I do love the love story between Dana and the Fred and the uh, I think Peggy, Teresa Wright's character. I do love that they form a romance in there, and that's kind of a big plot point of the whole movie. And I like those two together. And like I said, I love Teresa Wright. Totally understand why you fall in love with her watching the movie anyway. So I enjoyed that part too. And so yeah, it's just got everything you want in the movie. For my favorite scene in the movie, there's a couple. Like I said, them coming home is great, and seeing the emotions of the family, seeing their loved one coming home is always really great. Homer has a really great scene towards the end where um, he's talking to Wilma. He's showing what he looks like without his hooks, and talking about how he's kind of helpless without him. He needs help, and you know, and kind of saying, I understand if you don't want to marry me and you want to leave. And then of course she said, no, I want to marry you. I love you, and I want to help you. That's a good emotional scene. Uh, for my favorite part is really there's a scene where Al goes to this bar that Homer's uncle owns, and Homer's there, and Fred's also there because he can't find his wife. He's looking for his wife. His wife got a new job, and so she's not home, and he doesn't know how to get into the apartment. And so they're all three kind of come together after they've gone kind of home and seen their family, and they've got together. And Fred and Al get very drunk, and there's some comedic parts to that, and some romantic parts to it. Um, Anyways, and they come home and they're just passed out drunk, and the Merloy and Teresa Wright's characters have to like help them into bed and stuff. And while they're there, Fred has a nightmare, has PTSD, whatever. He's yelling out about, get out of the plane, it's on fire. He's reliving bad war moments, and it's a great moment where Peggy hears it and goes in there and kind of soothes him, and so kind of wakes him and says, it's okay, everything's okay, just try to go to sleep, and she kind of takes a washcloth and pats his brow, and kind of eases him back to sleep. I don't know. To me, I really like that movie, that part of the movie. Of course, that kind of starts a romance between the two, and just feels so bad for Fred having to deal with the nightmares of war, and you kind of really see. That's really the first scene you really see the bad after effects of the war and what it does to him, to this character, which we've seen in other movies, and we know in real life that happens, that people have nightmares, very, stressed and very traumatic events, like seeing your, friend die in war, and or seeing people that you work, that your colleagues dying and almost dying, all that. So I thought that was a really great scene in the movie. Of course, like I said, starts the relationship between them two. Also, kind of deals with, you really see the dealings of the war on him. Anyways, I think a very powerful moment for me. Probably one of my favorite parts of the movie. Favorite character, it's hard to say. All three main guys coming back from war all give great performances. I really like Dan Andrews, though. He was the one that didn't win an Oscar of the three. As Fred, like I said, I kind of like his storyline the best. Um, Dealing with, like I said, dealing with the PTSD part of it, and the romantic relationship he has with Teresa Wright. I really enjoy those moments, and I think he gives a really good performance, of course, because he's dealing with the real stress of dealing with the war, and at the end he's not sure what to do with his life, kind of thing, and he sees this field of old airplane bombers, and he gets in one, and he kind of relives the war as he's sitting in this airplane. A really great moment. Anyway, so really great performance by Dan Andrews. All three do a really good job, though. On the DVD, there's not much to the DVD. The only special feature on there's an interview with Teresa Wright and Virginia Mayo, who are in the movie. Anyway, that's interesting. But of course, it's an old DVD. It's an old movie. Like I said, it's not a movie that you think about a lot, so they didn't really do a lot. Unfortunately, I'd love to see more special features and audio commentary and stuff like that. But and I don't know if maybe there's a Blu-ray or something like that has more on it, but the DVD that I got doesn't have much on special features, unfortunately. So there's not much there, just the movie itself, which is good. Like I said, you can also watch this on Amazon Prime. At the moment, it's on there. Overall, I'm giving it 4.5 stars out of 5, so that's a really strong recommend. Almost a perfect movie for me. Like I said, definitely check it out. Definitely gives you, hopefully, if you're like me, it gets you emotional, thinking about some of those, coming back from war, but it has some comedic elements in there too, and just a really great story overall and performances that I think anybody would enjoy. Only it's 2 hours and 50 minutes long. If it was a little bit shorter, it'd probably be more accessible. But yeah, definitely check it out. The Best Years of Our Lives from 1946. So that's my review for that movie, and just thank you for watching this review, and thanks for liking the video, and just thank you to all the subscribers for supporting the channel. Really appreciate you, and have a good day.